Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive. Today we're tackling a topic that's near and dear to our hearts, fertility. Building that family you've always dreamt of.
Absolutely. It's such an exciting and important journey.
We're going to explore how what you eat can impact your chances of getting pregnant and having a healthy baby. We've got some great resources lined up, 2 articles on fertility diets, and another packed with tips for getting pregnant fast.
Awesome.
Before we get into the nitty-gritty, let me ask you something. Are you getting your fill of fruits and veggies? I know I'm always trying to squeeze in more.
Right. I think we all struggle with that sometimes.
Well, good news. Research shows that a diet rich in fruits, vegetables, and whole grains is linked to improved fertility.
Makes sense, right?
Yeah,
You're giving your body the best possible ingredients to create a healthy little human.
exactly. And speaking of good ingredients, did you know that watermelon and asparagus are great for egg quality?
Oh, yeah. They're both packed with this antioxidant called glutathione.
Glutathione, is that like a superhero for your eggs?
You could say that. It helps protect them from
So
damage.
it's like a little bodyguard for those precious eggs.
Exactly. And while we're talking about superfoods, kale is another one that deserves a shout out. It's fantastic for estrogen metabolism, which is super important for fertility.
Ooh, I love kale. I
Mm.
remember reading about a study where women who drank fresh vegetable juice with goji berries saw improvements in their egg health.
Mhm.
Have you seen anything like that in your practice?
Goji berries are definitely a nutritional powerhouse loaded with antioxidants and vitamins.
Mm.
It's great to see more research supporting their potential benefits for fertility. Although it's important to remember that everyone's body is different.
Of course. One size doesn't fit all.
What works for one person might not work for another, but adding those nutrient-rich foods is always a good idea.
Makes sense. So, speaking of healthy choices, let's move on to something I'm personally obsessed with, healthy fats.
Ooh, yes, such an important topic.
I'm a huge fan of avocados and nuts. Do they have a place in a fertility diet?
Absolutely. Healthy fats are key for reducing inflammation throughout the body, which is important because research suggests that reducing inflammation may be linked to improved fertility.
That's so interesting. And get this, I was reading that studies have shown that including monounsaturated fats during IVF can actually increase success rates.
It's amazing, right? Monounsaturated fats like the ones found in avocados, nuts, and olive oil seem to have a positive impact on both egg quality and embryo development.
So good fats, good results.
Exactly. On the flip side, it's a good idea to cut back on those processed snacks that are loaded with trans fats.
You mean like French fries and those yummy packaged treats?
Those are the ones. They
Yeah.
tend to increase insulin resistance, which can negatively affect ovulation.
So it's all about making those smart swaps and focusing on whole, unprocessed foods. Which brings us to carbs. What's the deal with refined carbs? Are they really that bad?
Refined carbs like white bread and pasta can lead to those dreaded blood sugar spikes and insulin releases, which can disrupt ovulation.
Right, I've heard about those spikes. But why exactly are they so bad?
Well, when your blood sugar spikes, your body releases a surge of insulin to bring it back down. These rapid fluctuations can really mess with your hormonal balance, which is crucial for fertility.
Hormones are so finicky.
They really are. On the other hand, complex carbs like brown rice and quinoa digest much more slowly. This provides a more gradual blood sugar impact, which is much better for your hormones.
So brown rice and quinoa it is.
And there are so many other delicious options to explore beyond those two, like amaranth and millet.
Oh, I love millet. So shifting gears a bit, gluten-free diets are all the rage these days. Do you think there's any benefit to cutting out gluten when trying to conceive?
There's some research out there suggesting that gluten might trigger inflammation in some people and increase C-reactive protein, making conception a little more challenging.
It's kind of a mixed bag.
Exactly. The research isn't entirely conclusive. It's always best to talk to your doctor before making any major dietary changes.
I totally agree. Personalized advice is so important. Now let's talk about protein. It's like the building block of life, right?
It is, and it's absolutely essential for a healthy pregnancy. Lean meats and fish are excellent sources.
Especially those cold water fish like salmon and sardines.
Oh, yes. They're packed with DHA and omega-3 fatty acids, which are crucial for a baby's brain and nervous system development.
I love salmon. And those omega-3s are so good for you.
They really are. They can even help reduce the risk of premature birth. One thing to note, though, you should try to avoid fish that are high in mercury, like shark, swordfish, tilefish, and king mackerel.
Good to know.
Ah,
Speaking of protein, let's not forget about eggs.
eggs are great.
They sometimes get a bad rap, but that yolk is full of protein and choline. which is
Hmm.
super important for a baby's brain development, right?
Exactly. Choline is essential for brain function and healthy cell development.
So don't skip the yolk.
Exactly. And don't forget about plant-based protein sources like beans, nuts, seeds, and tofu.
Those are all delicious.
They're great options, especially if you're trying to manage your weight before pregnancy.
Weight management is definitely something to be mindful of. Now, here's something I'm curious about. Full fat versus low fat dairy. Which one's better for fertility?
This might surprise you, but research actually suggests that full-fat dairy may be better for fertility than low-fat options.
Really? That's so interesting. Why is that?
It seems that the fat content in dairy may play a role in hormonal balance. However, dairy's impact on fertility can be complex, and some people might find that limiting their intake is actually beneficial, especially if they're having trouble conceiving.
So it's all about finding what works for you.
Exactly. It's always best to talk to your doctor to figure out what's best for your individual needs.
And don't forget about yogurt.
Yogurt is fantastic.
I love Greek yogurt, and it's such a great source of probiotics.
Probiotics are so good for gut health, which plays a role in overall well-being, including reproductive health. There are even studies that have linked probiotic-rich yogurt to a lower risk of premature birth.
Wow, I didn't know that. Okay, let's talk about something that often gets people riled up, caffeine. Do you think caffeine is a fertility killer?
Well, caffeine may not directly cause problems with ovulation, but it's important to be mindful of your intake because it can dehydrate you.
Dehydration is never a good thing.
Nope. And remember, pregnant women are generally advised to limit their caffeine intake, so it makes sense to start developing healthy habits early on.
Good point. So less coffee, more water.
Exactly. And there are plenty of delicious alternatives to explore. Decaf drinks and herbal teas like green tea, chamomile, hibiscus, or even ginger tea are great choices.
Those all sound great.
Yeah.
Now let's move on to a slightly more challenging topic, alcohol. Do you think it's absolutely necessary to completely give up alcohol while trying to conceive?
Alcohol, similar to caffeine, can dehydrate the body, and there's evidence suggesting that it might actually interfere with fertility.
Oh, wow, I didn't realize that.
We know that avoiding alcohol during pregnancy is crucial to minimize any risks to the baby. And interestingly, there's a study that showed that even the male partner's alcohol consumption can negatively impact sperm health.
Really? Wow. So it's something for both partners to think about.
Absolutely, it's a team effort.
Now, for a question that I'm sure many of us can relate to, what about sugar and fertility? Is it really that bad?
When it comes to fertility, especially for people who have unstable blood sugar levels, it's a good idea to limit sugary drinks and processed
I
sweeteners.
can definitely see how that would make sense.
Sugar can really disrupt your blood sugar and insulin levels, which can mess with your overall hormonal balance.
Those pesky hormones.
I know, right? And artificial sweeteners aren't a great alternative either. They can trigger a cortisol response, which can actually inhibit ovulation.
Oh no, so what's a sweet tooth to do?
If you're craving something sweet, try opting for less processed options like agave honey maple syrup or stevia.
Those were all good ideas. Now let's talk about soy. I've heard a lot of conflicting information about soy and its effect on fertility. What's your take on it?
I generally recommend avoiding those heavily processed soy products like powders and energy bars.
Why is that?
Well, these products often contain a lot of soy protein isolated, which might have estrogen mimicking properties.
Estrogen mimicking, that doesn't sound good.
Right. It can potentially disrupt hormonal balance.
So not all soy is bad, just certain types.
Exactly. Whole soy foods like edamame and tempeh and fermented soy products like miso and natto are considered healthy in moderation. It's really the highly processed stuff that we want to be careful with.
Got it. So now that we've covered what to eat and what to avoid, let's shift gears and talk about understanding your body's natural rhythms. Have you ever tried using an ovulation calculator or tracking your basal body temperature?
Understanding your ovulation and pinpointing your fertile window is key to increasing your chances of getting pregnant.
Absolutely. It takes out the guesswork.
Right. Using an ovulation calculator or a fertility app can be super helpful.
Technology to the rescue.
They can predict when you're most likely to ovulate based on your menstrual cycle.
That's awesome. Are there any other ways to track ovulation?
Absolutely. Another method is charting your basal body temperature, or BBT. This involves taking your temperature first thing every morning before you even get out of bed. You're looking for a slight increase, which can signal ovulation.
Interesting. So it's like a little detective work. What about those physical signs our bodies give us?
Those are important too. Pay attention to things like light spotting, breast tenderness, bloating, and even an increased sex drive. They can all be clues that ovulation is happening.
Our bodies are pretty amazing.
They are. And if you want a more definitive answer, you can use over-the-counter ovulation predictor kits to track the levels of luteinizing hormone, or LH, in your urine. A surge in LH usually means ovulation is about to happen.
So many options. So once you've figured out your fertile window, what's the next step?
The next step is making sure you're having sex regularly during that time. Ideally, aim for every other day during your fertile window.
Got it. Regular romance is key.
Hmm.
It's amazing how making those little changes can make a big difference. We talked a lot about nutrition, but what about stress? Seems like that plays a big role in fertility, too.
You're so right. Stress can definitely wreak havoc on your hormones, which can directly affect fertility.
When I'm stressed out, my sleep's all over the place.
Yeah.
I either eat everything in sight or nothing at all, and I have zero energy. It's like a domino effect.
Exactly. That chronic stress leads to high cortisol levels, which, is the stress hormone. And that can interfere with the production of other hormones that are essential for reproduction.
So basically, finding healthy ways to manage stress is crucial when you're trying to get pregnant.
Absolutely. And the good news is there are tons of stress-reducing techniques out there. Think yoga, meditation, going for walks in nature, journaling, deep breathing exercises. Anything that helps you feel grounded and centered can make a world of difference.
And let's not forget the importance of social support. Having a strong network of friends and family to lean on can be game changer.
You're so right. Social connection is so important for our overall well-being, both physically and emotionally. It helps to buffer those negative effects of stress and builds resilience. We've talked a lot about women's fertility, but let's not forget that men play an equally important role in conception. What are some things that men can do to boost their fertility?
That's a great point. Men's health is just as crucial in this journey.
Absolutely. Just like we talked about for women, a healthy diet, regular exercise, and managing stress are all key for men's reproductive health too.
It really is a team effort.
It really is. And for men specifically, certain nutrients are super important for sperm health. Zinc, selenium, and vitamin C are some of the big ones. You can find them in foods like oysters, Brazil nuts, and citrus fruits.
I've also heard that antioxidants are crucial for men's fertility too. Is that right?
You got it. Antioxidants help protect those sperm from damage caused by free radicals. So encourage your partner to load up on those colorful fruits and veggies. They're antioxidant powerhouses.
Eating the rainbow is always a good idea.
And of course, lifestyle choices matter too. Smoking, drinking too much alcohol, and even spending prolonged periods of time in heat can have a negative impact on sperm quality and quantity.
So creating an environment that supports optimal sperm health is just as important as focusing on diet. Now, switching gears a bit, how much does weight management affect fertility for both men and women?
Weight management is incredibly important for both partners. Being either overweight or underweight can throw your hormones out of whack and make it harder to conceive.
So finding a healthy weight that's right for your body is key.
Exactly. And that usually involves a combination of healthy eating habits and getting regular physical activity.
It's amazing how all of these elements are so interconnected.
They really are. Our bodies are complex systems, and everything from the food we eat to our stress levels to how we sleep can impact fertility. Taking a holistic approach is key for optimizing reproductive health.
Speaking of sleep, which, let's be honest, a lot of us sacrifice in our busy lives, how important is sleep for fertility?
Sleep is super important for regulating hormones, including the ones involved in reproduction. When you're sleep deprived, your body produces more cortisol, which, as we mentioned before, can disrupt your hormonal balance.
So basically, prioritizing sleep is a non-negotiable when you're trying to conceive.
You got it. And it's not just about getting enough sleep, it's also about the quality of your sleep. Establish a relaxing bedtime routine, make sure your bedroom is nice and dark and cool, and avoid things like caffeine and alcohol before bed.
All great tips. We've talked about the stuff going on inside our bodies, but what about external factors? I've heard that being exposed to certain chemicals and toxins can affect fertility too.
There's more and more research coming out suggesting that exposure to environmental toxins, things like pesticides, BPA, and phthalates, can mess with your hormones and potentially impact fertility.
So minimizing exposure to those toxins is super important.
Exactly. Choosing organic produce whenever possible, filtering your water, and avoiding plastic containers that contain BPA are good places to start. You might also want to think about the products you use on your body, like lotions and cosmetics. Choosing natural and organic options is always a good idea.
Great advice. Now let's talk about the emotional roller coaster that can come with trying to conceive. It can bring up so many feelings: excitement, anticipation, frustration, disappointment, it can be a lot to handle.
You're absolutely right. It can be really tough emotionally, especially if it's taking longer than you hoped for. It's so important to acknowledge those feelings and seek support when you need it.
It's okay to not feel positive and optimistic all the time. It's a normal part of the journey.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to reach out for help. Talk to your partner, your friends, your family, or even a therapist. There are also a lot of online support groups where you can connect with others who are going through the same thing.
Sharing your experience with people who understand can be so validating.
It can be truly empowering. And remember, you're not alone in this. So many people are going through similar experiences.
We've covered diet, lifestyle, stress management, and even environmental factors. But what about genetics? Does that play a role in fertility too?
Genetics definitely plays a role. Certain genetic conditions can affect reproductive health in both men and women.
So if someone has a family history of fertility issues, it's important to talk to their doctor about it.
Absolutely. They might recommend genetic testing to see if there are any potential risks.
And how much does age affect fertility?
Age is definitely a factor, especially for women. As women get older, the number and quality of their eggs naturally decline.
So it's important to be aware of that biological reality.
Yes, but it doesn't mean that all women over a certain age will have difficulty conceiving. Many women in their late 30s and even early 40s have healthy pregnancies.
It's all about understanding the risks and making informed decisions.
Exactly. And being proactive about your reproductive health. If you're concerned about your fertility for any reason, don't hesitate to seek help from a fertility specialist. There have been so many advances in reproductive technology that can help couples who are facing challenges.
That's good to know. We've covered a lot of serious topics today. Are there any fun, quirky tips for boosting fertility that you've come across?
Well, there's this interesting belief out there that eating pineapple can help with implantation.
Really? I've never heard that one before.
Yeah, it's not scientifically proven, but some people swear by it. Pineapple contains an enzyme called bromelain, which some believe has anti-inflammatory properties.
Interesting. Maybe worth a shot.
Right. And then there's the classic advice to put your legs up in the air after sex to help the sperm reach the egg.
Oh yeah, I've definitely heard that one.
Again, there's no scientific evidence to back it up, but hey, it could make things a little more fun.
It's always good to keep things lighthearted, especially when you're dealing with a potentially stressful situation.
I agree. Trying to conceive can be a real roller coaster ride, so don't forget to enjoy the journey as much as possible.
That's such great advice. And even if you're doing everything right, sometimes it just takes time.
Patience is definitely key.
Before we wrap up part 2, I want to remind everyone that we've covered a lot of information today, and we've shared some great insights from our 3 sources. It's always important to do your own research and chat with your doctor or other healthcare professionals for personalized advice.
Exactly. This deep dive is just a starting point. We want to spark your curiosity and empower you to explore fertility and nutrition further.
We encourage you to share your experiences and any questions you have in the comments. We love hearing from you guys.
We really do. It's a community effort, and we're all in this together.
Now, for a little something to ponder. We've seen how even small changes to your diet can have a big impact on your fertility journey.
Those small changes can definitely add up over time.
So what one change will you try this week?
Mm-hmm.
It's all about those baby steps, right? Taking those small steps towards a healthier lifestyle.
Exactly. One step at a time.
Speaking of baby steps, one thing that really caught my attention was the idea of choosing full-fat dairy over low-fat when you're trying to conceive. Seems a little counterintuitive at first, but the research is pretty fascinating.
I know, right? It is interesting. Those studies suggest that the fat in dairy might actually play a big role in keeping your hormones balanced. It's amazing what we're still learning about how our bodies work.
It really is. It just shows how important it is to stay curious and be open to new information.
Absolutely. And speaking of new information, here's another point that I found really interesting. The emphasis on avoiding processed soy products. We often hear about soy being a healthy food, but it seems like it might not be so beneficial when it comes to fertility.
That's a great point. It's important to understand that not all soy is created equal.
Exactly. You know, those whole soy foods like edamame and tempeh are considered healthy and can be part of a balanced diet. It's the highly processed soy products that we need to be more mindful of.
So it's all about making those informed choices and being savvy shoppers.
Exactly. And it reminds us that not all processed foods are bad, but we need to choose wisely. We've talked about specific foods and nutrients, but what about those overall dietary patterns? Are there any diets that have been linked to better fertility?
That's a great question. There's a lot of buzz around the Mediterranean diet these days, and for good reason.
It's true. There's a growing body of research suggesting that the Mediterranean diet could be really beneficial for fertility.
It seems like it's good for just about everything.
Right, and there's a reason for that. The Mediterranean diet emphasizes whole, unprocessed foods, things like fruits, vegetables, whole grains, legumes, healthy fats. It's a balanced and delicious way to eat that can really support overall health, including reproductive health.
It sounds more like a lifestyle than a diet.
I think that's a great way to put it. It's about making sustainable changes that you can stick with for the long haul.
Absolutely. We've talked about limiting things like caffeine, alcohol, and processed sugars. Are there any other dietary things to be mindful of when trying to conceive?
It's always a good idea to be aware of any food sensitivities or allergies you might have. Certain foods can cause inflammation in the body, and that can mess with your hormonal balance.
So it's all about paying attention to how your body reacts to different foods.
Exactly. Keeping a food journal can be helpful. Just jot down any changes you notice in your digestion, your energy levels, or even your mood after eating certain foods. It can help you pinpoint any potential triggers.
Of course, talking to your doctor or a registered dietitian is always a good idea. They can help you personalize your approach to nutrition.
I completely agree. Personalized guidance is key.
So if you had to sum up everything we've talked about today, what would be the one key takeaway for our listeners?
The most important message is that we have the power to influence our fertility through the choices we make every single day. By adopting a healthy lifestyle, nourishing our bodies with those nutrient-rich foods we talked about, and finding ways to manage stress, we can create an environment that supports optimal reproductive health.
It's about taking those proactive steps to empower ourselves on our journey to parenthood.
Yes. And remember, it's a journey, not a destination. There will be bumps in the road, there will be ups and downs, but by prioritizing your well-being and seeking support when you need it, you can navigate those challenges and create the family of your dreams.
That's beautifully said. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into fertility and nutrition. It's been a pleasure having you here.
Thank you for having me. It's been a great conversation.
And to all of our amazing listeners out there, thank you so much for tuning in. We hope you found this deep dive informative and inspiring. Remember, you're not alone on this journey, and we're here to support you every step of the way. Until next time, take care of yourselves and keep those questions coming. We'll be back soon with more deep dives into topics you care about.